December 28th. So that's my little announcement. Now, jumping right into the conversation, I'm excited because this man that I have that's coming on that's going to be joining me is someone who I respect, who always is genuine in everything that he shares. He's genuine in his expression. He really gives insight. And every time I have a conversation with this man, I'm gonna say this guy. Every time I have a conversation with him, I always leave with something. I always leave with some kind of wisdom, some kind of understanding. He's been a friend of mine for going on 10 years now. We've been friends, it's always a pleasure, especially speaking with him, conversing with him. And so he's going to be joining me to give some insight. It's a very good friend of mine, my dear brother John Rousseau. John, thank you for joining me. Thank you for taking the time to join me in this leadership conversation. It's always a privilege to chat with you, and everything I'm saying, I mean it from the heart. Speaking with you is always something that I'm always able to grasp something, because you're always genuine and you always care about what you're talking about. Whatever we're talking about, you always express that care, that love, and you're always bringing it back to Christ and always bringing it back to how can we help and how can we serve. And so thank you so much for joining me tonight. We're going to be no problem. We're going to have a very good discussion tonight, because as we've been discussing voices in our head, we talked about different things like rejection, we talked about disappointment, we talked about fear, we talked about failure, we talked about all of these things that we tend to deal with as leaders, that contribute to the voices in our head. But one of the things that we want to talk about tonight is the pressure of expectations. One of the things that adds to the voices in our head are the challenges that we deals with. The challenges of the voices in our head is sometimes you have to deal with the expectations, especially as a leader, right? As a leader, you're in the focus of others. People are watching your moves, watching your life, watching your actions. And with leadership, sometimes it comes with the pressure of expectations, because people have an expectation that you're going to be a certain way, that you're going to act a certain way, that you're going to talk a certain way. And so tonight we're going to discuss a little bit about that, some of the pressures of expectation and how it adds to dealing with the voices in our head. So, John, I'm gonna give you the floor to introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you, and then let's jump right in.
Well, first, let me start off by saying I was nervous before, but after that intro, I think I'm even more nervous. Oh man, you put a lot on it. As Colin said, we've been friends for a while now, 10 years. In fact, we've been friends ever since my wife and I actually started dating, because both of our wives are actually close friends. That's how we
Right.
actually met. Um, I've been a minister for a couple of years now, although I've been preaching for ever since I was 19 years old, 18 years old. But I was raised in the church. I was born in the church. My father is a pastor. He's still alive and he's still kicking, so he's still a pastor. But I've been in church all my life, and like you said, when it comes to expectations, it can both be something that drives you and something that also hinders you from
Right.
doing God's work the way that it should be done. Whenever it comes to being a man of God or anyone who is trying to serve God, people automatically want to kind of pair you up with someone in the Bible. We kind
That's
of
good.
we tend to, in fact, even those in the Bible, we forget that at one point in time, these individuals were human. They had fears. They had terrors at night. They had things that kept them from serving God the way they wanted to. They've had moments in time where they were weak, and we tend to forget all of that. That's how come I love the Bible so much, because the Bible doesn't hide anything. It tells you every single individual's problems, what their sins were, the mistakes they made, who they were before they received Christ, who they were after they received Christ. And we forget that. We tend to forget the human behind the preacher. And
Mm,
not only that, we forget that the preacher himself needs to pray and he needs a connection. And if he doesn't have it, he's going to fall just like everybody else.
absolutely. I think that's a great point. Yeah, one thing that I I always look at the fact is that um we fantasize a little bit the lives of the individuals in the Bible. We tend to just think about only their victories and not necessarily their flaws or their
Yeah.
challenges. Like especially like Abraham. Like we always think about Abraham as the father of faith, but
Hmm.
we forget that Abraham lied a couple of
Several times.
times, a
Several
couple of
times.
times to protect himself. And he sometimes made some bad decisions,
Yeah.
but I think when you're especially when you're in a particular position, when you carry a particular title, the challenge of what are people thinking always arises.
Hmm.
And like you said, sometimes we forget that people we take the humanity out of people,
Definitely.
um and we don't give people room to grow.
No.
Go ahead.
And I was going to say, don't get me wrong, this is not a cop out, as in, like, oh, you caught me in my sin. Oh, no, hey, I'm human. No, it's a matter, you're still trying to strive towards being a child of God and, being holy as God is holy. But let's just be honest, no individual is perfect. If we were perfect, then we'd be Jesus. There's no such thing as that. You have to strive towards Jesus and towards the example that he set before us. He set the bar extremely high, no doubt about it. But that doesn't mean that you should just automatically give up and say, well, I'm not Jesus, I'll just do whatever. But then again, you shouldn't allow yourself to fall victim to whatever people expect from you, because
Right.
when it all comes down, you know, anybody can, set their goals towards the stars, but sooner or later, you're gonna realize you're not gonna reach it. You just need to understand that, you are weak, but with God, you're strong. That's it. It's just you need to focus on God. No one else. God is the center point of our lives. As long as we're doing His will, everybody else can just fade away.
Absolutely.
I don't mean to be
I
blunt like
think
that, but it's the truth.
no, absolutely. I think that's a great point. And for those who follow King Vision and have heard some of the conversations that I've had, we've talked about the fact that you can't try to be a superhero. A lot of times we have this superhero mentality that I can carry the world on my shoulders.
Amen.
But one thing that I always say, and my I share with my church family, and they always laugh when I say this, but you know, the Bible says I can do all things through Christ who strengthens
Who
me. But the
strengthens me.
truth is,
Yeah.
truth of the matter is that Christ hasn't strengthened me to do all things.
No,
And
that's a
so
wow. That's a good one.
so we Christ will strengthen us to do some things. There's some things that we're graced to do, and some things that we are anointed to do, but there's some things that we just can't. And so when we're as leaders, we're trying to live and be an example, you know as you said, always leaning on Christ and always believe depending on Christ to be our strength,
Yeah.
because we have our own challenges. And truth of the matter is we can't do everything, although people will expect that you can do everything and they have
Hmm.
these expectations. And one thing too that I've come to realize is that a lot of times people have expectations of you without sharing those expectations. They have this
Mm.
expectation that
Yeah.
you're going to do certain things, and when you don't meet those expectations, they start to look at you a certain way,
Yes.
but not at no point in time have they communicated those expectations with you.
Hmm. Yeah.
They
No.
expect that as pastor and as reverend, that when I call you, no matter what time I call you, you're going to answer the
Hmm.
phone.
Yeah.
right? And then when you don't do that, the minute you don't answer their phone call, you don't answer their text, or you don't respond to an
You
email,
failed them.
then right, you're a terrible person. You're a terrible human being. I That's why I can't deal with you. That's why I don't like church people. That's why
Oh, man.
I don't mess with pastors. All these
Yeah.
things that they say, all say, not because of a clear understanding of what 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 the expectations are, but silently they're expecting you to meet these requirements.
No, definitely. It's almost a celebrity kind of situation in the sense that, you have it in your mind that this person is supposed to be above everyone else. They're not supposed to fall. They're supposed to be an individual that can answer every question within the Bible, that has all the answers for everything. And then the minute you show them that, hey, I'm just as human as you are, it's like, what kind of church is this? It's the same exact perhaps I shouldn't be talking like this, but it's the same exact expectations that people might have with relationships, in the sense that you expect that your boyfriend's going to be a certain way, or your girlfriend's going to be a certain way, or your wife or your husband, and then all of a sudden you just begin to realize they're just as messed up as I am, or they've got issues just like me, or I mean, I can't tell you how many times whenever I would preach a sermon, or I would talk to people and they realize, I've got a stutter, and every so often they're like, when you're preaching, it's completely different. You don't stutter as much. And I'm like, yeah, I'm I'm doing my best not to. It's gonna happen, but everybody has their flaws, the things that they really can't get over. But back to the men of the Bible. I mean, you brought up Abraham. I always bring up Moses. Moses literally killed a guy, and you know
Right.
people forget that. Yes, that was before he was Moses, but still, it happened. And the Bible lets you know that this was an individual. This was a human being who made mistakes, and he was led by God to do great things. Christ started his ministry when he was led by the Spirit. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And people forget that it's the Spirit that leads you. It's not you as a human
Right.
being. You're not born, perfect. Far from it. You know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Asha put, she wrote, he uses imperfect people for a perfect cause.
Yeah.
I think
Like,
that's I think that's so impactful. It's so true that everyone that God uses, every leader that God uses has a flaw. There's
yeah,
something imperfect about it. And I think that's what makes the love of Christ and the grace and everything that we preach about makes it so much, have so much more meaning,
yeah,
because you have regular people doing, or ordinary people doing extraordinary things, not because of their own strength or because of who they are, but because the call that God has placed on their lives.
yeah. God doesn't want your perfection. He wants your potential. That's what he wants.
I like that.
And people
Put
forget
that in
that.
the chat. God doesn't want your perfection; He wants
You
your
know, I
potential.
say that all the
I
time
love
to the
that.
youth of my church, all the time, because what you see, you're not seeing a perfect being. You're seeing a being under construction. That's it.
Mm,
That's it.
that's that that's true. Um, Similar to something that I always say: don't strive for perfection, strive for excellence.
Yeah,
You know, we the minute that you become perfect, you become dead,
you know,
because perfection means that there's no more room for growth.
no. That means
You
that
can
you're a
no
completed, you're a
right,
completed tool or object,
and
project.
the only person besides Jesus that I can remember was Enoch, and you saw what happened with him. He got
Right.
he got caught up. But
Yeah.
let's speak to this challenge of perfection, because I think when we talk about the challenge of perfection, or even, I think we can even label perfection as a voice in our heads,
Hmm.
right? Because you're always trying to figure out how to make things perfect, and that's always the voice that's speaking to you. So even when you're trying to do something new,
Hmm.
right? Every time you're trying to do something new, or you're trying to build something, or you're trying to start something, right? A lot of times many people procrastinate in
Yeah.
starting something, or they delay in doing something that they know they should be doing.
Hmm.
Why? Because this voice of perfection is speaking to them,
That's me right
right?
there.
There's this voice of perfection is speaking to them, and so
Yeah.
it's like, I want to do this, I want to start this, but it's not perfect,
Hmm.
or I don't know enough,
Yeah.
or I'm not experienced enough. And for some reason we feel like we got to get it perfect before we start it. And so
Hmm.
every time you go to start, moment of transparency, every time I try to um write something, like trying I try to write notes, or I try
Hmm.
to even creating something to post on social media, right? I often struggle with, man, this doesn't sound perfect. And so I spend time trying to perfect it until eventually I'm just tired and I'm just like, you know what, forget
Oh,
it.
yeah, yeah. You like you feel like you've already lost a battle, so just forget it. Like I can't tell you how
Right.
many times. Like I grew up as an artist. I would draw all the time. And as I grew older, I began to get on social media and follow other artists and see what they're doing. And whenever I'm seeing what they're doing, I see their finished product and I'm just like, I can never do this. It's impossible. How can I can't match that. And I don't realize that I'm not seeing the process. What I'm seeing is the final state of their project. And
Right.
you know when you start comparing yourself to another individual's finished product, of course you're not going to start it because you've already lost the battle mentally. The situation is
Yep.
once you start, continue on and keep moving forward. We kind of forget that we all started out as children. We started out as
Mm,
babies, not being able to walk, not even being able to lift our heads, and eventually we were able to roll our head over, we were able to roll our body over and start crawling and then start walking and then start running and jumping. It's a process. And it's the same thing as when you are a child of God, when you are receiving Christ, you start off as a baby, you know, you're
hmm
starting off with the milk, like Paul says, and eventually you move over to the meat. But it's a process. You need to start from somewhere. And the best way to start is just start. That's it. You know,
Yep.
don't let your dreams be dreams. It's a meme, but it is what it is, man.
It's true. But yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And there's so much power in just starting, and really, and it really takes a intentional energy and effort to push past that voice that says it has to be perfect.
Mm.
Pastor Lemon, she wrote, we tend to put unrealistic expectations on ourselves. Absolutely. We do tend to put these unrealistic expectations, and we expect, like you said, we compare to people who have already been through the process,
Hmm.
right? You want to start a business, but you're looking at those who are already in that field,
Yeah.
and you see where they're at, and you see how many followers they have on social media, and then you start to think, man, there's no way that I can get to that point,
Yeah.
not realizing that they had to start somewhere too.
Or even like you graduate college and you're like, okay, now where's my six-figure income job now? Only some people who have those kind of, qualifications and, had those kind of careers can start out like that. But even then, they had to start somewhere. Unless
Hmm.
somebody like, in the business, you have to start as a box boy. You just have to do it,
Right.
or the lowest part of the position. And it's just, you got to be tried by fire. That's it. You just have to go through that fire every once in a while. And like I said, you know, you just have to start. You just have to start reading your Bible. You have to start getting close to people who know God. You have to start, praying more. You have to put yourself in a position where you are ready for the work that God has for you.
Right. Right. Absolutely. And there's something that you just said that was so key, and that you have to put yourself in that position. I believe that we all have everything that we need to be able to be successful, and we have everything inside of us that we need, but you have to have that relationship with God to be able to have him pull it out. You said
To
that
tap into it.
God doesn't like God is not looking at for perfection, he's looking for potential. He
Mhm.
gave us that potential, but we
Amen.
have to we have to constantly lean into his voice and allow that potential to be developed and allow it to
Amen.
be drawn out so that we can do the very thing that he called us to do. But it starts with us believing. It starts with it starts with faith, right? Because you're ultimately trying to do something that scares you.
Hmm.
And so if it scares you, then you need faith to make up the distance, right?
Yeah.
Something that
If you're
Jesus
not,
said that was
no,
go
keep on
ahead.
going, keep on going, keep on
Oh
going.
no, I was saying something that Jesus said about faith being the size of a mustard seed, right?
Hmm.
The mustard seed eventually grows to be one of the biggest trees, but you just need something small to start with. And I think it starts with us believing, listen, I really have a passion for writing, right? And it just, all right, I'm going to take this little passion that I have for writing and I'm going to start writing it. My sentence structure, my verbs, my pronouns, I may not get the adjectives right, I may not get it right, but I'm going to keep writing. And the more I keep writing, the more I keep developing, the more
Hmm.
I allow God to teach me how to write, the more that's how you move from just having that passion for writing to ultimately writing best-selling books.
Yeah. It has to start somewhere. And not only that, you have to continue on it. I mean, I can't tell you how many times, even myself, I would start something off and I just kind of lose that fire that I had in the beginning. You have to just kind of dig into it and keep on moving forward. Even when it comes to the work of God, once you start out something in Christ, you cannot by any means then say to God, you know what, I've gotten this far, I don't need you now. I pretty much got the handle of things. We spoke about this last week. You cannot just think that you can take over. We forget that this is, if you want to be a leader in the church, this is God's work. This is not yours. So
Right.
God has to be the one to push you forward. He has to be the one to guide you in it, and he has to be the one to finalize the product for you. He has to put a stamp of approval on it. You're not done until he says you're done.
Right. Absolutely. And I think when we come to that conclusion and that understanding, now listen, this thing is a journey.
Yeah,
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
yeah.
And we just gotta keep consistency. And I think
Amen.
that's the point that you're hitting, is that we just gotta keep that consistency even when we fail, even when we make mistakes. Because I was listening to a speech that Denzel Washington was giving,
Hmm.
and he was saying that you have to fail your way into success.
Amen.
You got to keep trying, you got to keep failing. He said, listen, the everybody that sits in a barbershop eventually will get a cut. So the more you stay consistent in what you're doing, as more
Yeah,
as you stay in it and you dig into it, then you put yourself in a position where eventually you will learn, you will grow,
yeah.
and you will be able to do the very thing that you were failing at. Because each failure it takes you a step closer to success, because you're
Amen.
realizing, all right, this didn't work, this didn't work, all right, this is not the way to go, this is the way to go.
Amen.
And I think when we do that, we take that pressure off of ourselves. We take that pressure of, I need to be this at this point.
No,
You know,
definitely. And one of the biggest problems that I've ever had when it comes to the church is how the adults act towards the children, in the sense that they don't give the kids a chance to fail. They make the kids, they already guilt the kids into feeling like, you know why are you doing this, you're not supposed to be this way. And growing up as a pastor's son, I'm sure most of you heard the stories before from all pastors kids. They expect you to come out the womb the way your father is, the way your father or your mother is now. You know what I mean? It's like they expect you to be coming out the womb speaking in tongues and laying hands on people. And it's like, I just want to play video games right now. Let me play my PlayStation. Why are you bothering me right now? They're giving you quizzes on Bible verses, and they're just like, I don't know, man. Just like, let me be a kid. And then this is why you have so many times where young pastors' children, they see the expectations that are, they already see their parents and the way that they are, and see how people view them. And now they are placing that burden on the child, expecting the child to be the same exact way. And no wonder they kind
Right.
of fall from grace every once in a while.
Right.
A
Right.
lot of them
Right.
actually do. It's a tragedy.
Absolutely. No, it's the truth. I've seen so many P- PKs, right? So many PKs
Yeah.
deal with that where because of that pressure and that expectation that, oh, well, your dad is this way, or your mom is this way, so you're supposed to come out the womb preaching. You're supposed to already know
Hmm.
5 years old you should be doing the same thing that your parents have been doing. And
It's just not gonna happen, man.
and you
It
have
can,
that
but
pressure, of I have to watch everything that I do, right? I have
yeah,
to watch everything that I do because people expect that anything that I do is going to be a reflection of my father or my
you don't.
of my church or
Yeah,
the organization that I'm a part of. A lot of us, we deal with that, right? Every time you fail or you make a mistake, you people link you back to your church or to
yeah.
who you're connected to and say,
Aren't
well,
you a pastor's
aren't
son?
you right? Funny story, right? So when I was in college. I think I had preached my first sermon at the campus ministry,
Hmm.
right? So I preached my first sermon. It was terrible, by the way, terrible, terrible.
They
I
always
saw
are. They always are.
I saw a video clip of it, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is horrible, right? So I preached my first sermon at the campus ministry, and I think maybe like 2 or 3 weeks later, I had gone to a party on campus. Like a friend of mine, she was leaving, she was going away for study abroad or whatever, and they decided to have like a party for her. So I went to the party. I'm there. I'm not doing anything. I'm not drinking. I'm not dancing. I'm just standing in the party because every now and again you want a moment to kind of just be a college student.
Yeah.
So I was there, and this guy, he comes up to me and he's like stumbling drunk, like he's drunk out of his mind, and he's stumbling through the party, and he walks up to me and he goes, "What you doing here, preacher? What you doing here, preacher? Don't you're not supposed to be here, you a preacher." And I was like, "Oh, I gotta go." And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just
That's
I
it.
just left because because he's drunk, he's loud,
Yeah.
and I'm just trying to relax. I'm not trying to do anything. I'm not trying to
Yeah.
get any attention. But he's like, "Preacher, what you doing here, preacher?" And I was like, you know what? Let me get out of here.
No, the
Let
the
me
funny,
get
the
out of
worst
here.
part about it, the worst part about it is that in a lot of ways, there's kind of some truth to it because it's like,
Right,
you're supposed to be separated and set apart and stuff like that, and you do get it. Like there are times where you kind of step overboard and you need to pull
right,
yourself back in, but it's like there are times where these expectations, they kind of drive you crazy because you live in your life like you're on Facebook.
mm,
You're putting up that image where everybody's looking in and they're just like, oh wow, he's this, he's that, he's doing all of this, and you know, I feel like Christians are the best chameleons. They're
mm,
able to blend in anywhere, and in a sense, it's just like we kind of lose ourselves in these situations because we want to be something that we're not at times, you know?
right,
And every so often, God kind of just pulls us back in. He reminds us who
right.
we are, where we're supposed to be, and that's it. It's just we need to understand that God is in control of all things. That's it.
Absolutely. And to that point too, I think especially when it comes to being a person in leadership, one of the biggest challenges that leaders have, and again back to the voices, right, is that you have moments of weakness, you have moments where you're hurting, you have moments
Hmm.
where you feel vulnerable, right? And there are sometimes where you feel like you can't show that vulnerability. You can't show that hurt that you're dealing with or
That would
that
make you
pain.
human.
So Right. But because perfection is saying, well, if you share that, what are people going to think? Right? You start to think about what are people going to think, and then that's how perfection starts to speak to you. That pressure of expectation, that voice speaks to you because it always brings you back to what are people going to think about you,
Mm,
and so
definitely.
you almost it have to internalize it,
Hmm.
and a lot of times we internalize it and it starts to build up certain things in our lives that we don't know how to deal with, right?
Yeah.
um I hope to one day have a conversation about this, about pride, because my wife brought up something that was so powerful, and I'm going to study it some more and dive into it. That what causes someone to be prideful, what causes someone to be arrogant, right? What causes someone to get to that place? A lot of times it stems from rejection and insecurity, where
Hmm.
I feel insecure about myself, and because others reject me, I start to build up this wall where I am hurting, but I'm outwardly portraying confidence,
Hmm.
right? And because it's confidence misdirected, it comes off it becomes arrogance,
Yeah.
right? And then ultimately, because of that fact that you're always trying to put on this strong front, you could it can you can almost put yourself in a dangerous position where pride starts to build up as a form of protecting myself.
Hmm.
And I think a
Definitely.
lot of leaders, they, because of that expectation, because of that pressure, sometimes they don't know how to handle the those challenges.
Hmm.
And so you start to build up certain things that are necessarily not what God called you to have, but because of the fact that you're constantly internalizing. I can't show anybody my hurt or my pain or my wounds because they have this expectation of me. And it
Because
goes back to no, go ahead.
yeah, yeah. No, no, but here's a point, like you just struck something that really hit me right now. Allow me to just dig deep into myself a little bit. Um, have you ever had a moment where you are as a minister, or here you are as a quote unquote image of a child of God, and you have a problem with an altar call? I can't tell you that there was a time where they were doing an altar call, and I felt like I was falling from grace. I felt like I wasn't where I was supposed to be in God. And
Mm-hmm.
then the minister was saying, "This is your time. This is your moment for you to reestablish your time and your connection with God." And I was so scared of, going up to this altar call, because here I am. I'm a man of God. I'm a youth leader, and once they see me, going up this altar call, they're gonna see me as as a failure, somebody who is not real, somebody who's not honest, who's been lying. And I began to realize that no, this is your moment. God is calling you to this altar to
Mm-hmm.
reestablish your relationship. You know what I mean?
Right.
And we kind of forget that we kind of allow these expectations to just keep us trapped in this bubble of, perfection. You
Mm-hmm.
know, growing up as a child, my biggest fear was ruining my father's brand. You
Mm-hmm.
know, he's a minister, he's a pastor. He is, he has this image, this thing that's supposed to, this light, and who I am. Anything I can do can, destroy this thing.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot destroy what God has created. You have
Wow.
no power on this earth to destroy anything that God has created. Your soul is so fragile. It's so weak without God. And once you allow yourself to step away from God, you are now putting yourself away from salvation. You're putting yourself away from his power. You know, God says he'll never leave you nor forsake you. But if you feel like you're away from God, it's because you moved, not God,
Mm. Right.
you know? And that's how come when it comes to these altar calls and it comes to these moments when you feel like you need God, the best thing for you to do is just answer. Not allowing
Right.
people's
Right.
eyes to or their views of you to keep you from doing what you have to do,
Right. Right.
you know?
No, absolutely. And I think many of us can attest to that, where there's an altar call and you know that you need prayer, or you need ministering to, but because again you wonder about the eyes that are looking at you, what people are going to think, all that you must have sinned, you must have done
Yeah,
something wrong.
it doesn't have to be something like, oh, I got a baby and nobody knows about it. No, it's not even that. It's you know you could be praying daily but still feel like there's some distance there. You could be reading daily and still feel like I'm still not quite where I'm supposed to be at right now. It doesn't matter whether or not if people had their views of you. What matters is your own personal connection.
Right,
That's what
right.
matters. Because when it comes down to it, you're answering to Christ. Nobody else is answering to Christ for you. I've been talking a lot, sorry.
No, listen, what you're saying is absolutely true, and a lot of people deal with that and not realize, or don't know how to articulate it,
Yeah,
and so you sharing that, it's key, because we all, in one case or another, have felt that way. We've all dealt with that kind of experience where you need
amen,
God, right?
amen.
And sometimes we make the mistake of sacrificing we sacrifice our connection with God for the perception of others. You know what I mean? And
Amen.
we all, listen, we all need prayer, we all need encouragement, we all need deliverance, we all need help, right? And I think it's important that we not let go of those needs, to because the voice is telling us, what are people thinking about me. you know there are some people that I admire, because like my pastor Bridget, she will listen, she will get down and cry in the middle of in the during praise and worship, right?
Amen.
She'll When the spirit of God is moving, she'll be the first one on the altar, like,
Amen.
not thinking about how the rest of the service is going, but she knows at this moment, this I need God.
I
I'm
need
here for
God.
God just like everybody else.
Mhm.
And she will not hesitate to kneel down at the altar and receive what she needs from God.
Yeah,
And
no, it's an intimate moment. It's an intimate moment, and people forget that it's you and God.
yeah, and I know so many leaders that will not do those kind of things. They
No,
they they because of their title, because of who they think they are, they will not do those things. They want to always look poised. They always want to look like they have it all together, like God is always speaking to them, like they're always in the presence of God. Nothing is wrong with them. They have no problems, they have no challenges,
they're
and they
perfect.
stay poised because I have to be this image of something, or I have to display strength, and so you start to think that these people don't, or they always have God and they always experience God, and the truth of the matter is it's not true.
No,
they
it's not
need they
true.
need But because of the fact that they're not willing to let go of the perception of others, to
Mhm.
keep their connection with God, it they start to do all kinds of crazy things. As my wife always says, they go left.
No, it's the truth. It's you know you're failing yourself. Like my father always says, you're shooting yourself in your own foot.
Mm,
You're putting yourself in a situation where you're not committing yourself to who God is and to who God wants you to be. And in fact, you're actually hurting other individuals that are watching you because now their expectations of you, you're now fulfilling those expectations of you. And you're now feeding this image of perfection that people have of you. And now they feel like they cannot get close to that image. They feel like they cannot be you, you know. So now
mm.
they kind of feel like they just have to, once they fail, that's it. I'm done. Oh, I sinned. I can't come to church anymore. I'm a sinner now. guys,
Wow. Yeah,
you
it's
know,
true.
I'm sorry, I can't come to church anymore. I'm a sinner. I messed up that one night. I'm sorry. No, church is full of people that are just hurting, that need God, that desire a relationship with Christ, and they know that they are failures. They know that they need to work on. That's what church is. It's a hospital for sinners. You're there for healing. You're there for direction. You're there for connection. And people forget this. They think that once you enter this church, you're now saying, I am perfect.
Mm,
I am this, I am like Christ. I am a perfect being. It's not true.
right. Christ
It's, it,
reincarnated.
yeah, it's like a bunch of popes walking around. I'm sorry.
No, is that
Come on, man. It's
yeah.
like you're setting yourself up for failure right now. I mean, look at David. King David wrote all these psalms. He killed giants, lions. He was a great man of God. But there was Bathsheba. Not only that, he had her husband killed.
Hmm.
After all these psalms that he wrote, all these sonnets and works of art for the glory of God, and he failed. He made a mistake. He fell to sin. It happens.
Yep.
But people always forget that there's grace after all of this. God loves you. That's it.
Hmm.
He, he wants you more than anything, and you're allowing your own image of perfection to keep you away from that. You have to
Right.
be honest with God.
And I think too also it extends not just in the church, but extends even in our everyday lives, right? Sometimes
Mm,
we kind of hide who we are as Christian leaders, because we wonder how the business world is going to look at us, or how the corporate world is going to look at us, or how people in our jobs are going to look at us, and not realizing that when you display the character of Christ, um, people will respect it more, right? It kind of is like, it seems like it's taboo, but what people respect is authenticity. People
amen.
respect when you're authentic. One thing that I admire about Steve Harvey is that whenever you listen to him speak, whenever you hear him talk about do his motivational speeches, he always talks about the fact that he has faith in God, and his faith in God is the source of his drive and why he does what he does. And every now and again he does these crazy things, but
Yeah.
he always, whenever he's giving his motivational speeches, I was watching the speech that he was giving to his audience on Family Feud, and he was saying, listen, you need God to be able to accomplish your dreams, to be able, he's like, there's only two scriptures that I know, and one of them is write the vision and make it plain. And he's like, listen, if you don't want to hear this, then you don't have to listen to me, but I'm telling you it works, and you can't do it without God. And he does that unashamedly, right? Even
Yeah.
though he doesn't portray as being the perfect Christian, or anything like that. Whenever he's talking about accomplishing your dreams, building your vision, um, obtaining success, he always attributes to the fact that, listen, I'm telling you this because this is what worked for me. This is how I know I've experienced my level this level of success because of the fact that I have faith in God, and God is in control, and God will direct you in the direction of accomplishing your dreams. And I
Well,
think we as people of God, have as Christian leaders, have to learn to be able to still do that, right? Listen, I'm able to build this business idea, or build this nonprofit, because of the fact that I believe that God is in control, and that God is directing me, and God is steering me. And I think that is more impactful when you share that with people who don't know Christ. That when you go
mhm.
outside the church, because right, the church, everyone is saved. Everyone knows Christ, right?
Everyone,
And
everyone. You step into the
right,
door, you're
everyone knows,
saved automatically.
right. Everybody knows God. But when you are out in the marketplace, or you're out on your job, and people are able to attribute your character, your success, um your ability to accomplish things and get things done, to the fact that it's because of your faith in Christ,
Yeah,
it causes them to be a little more curious about this guy that we're talking about.
definitely. No,
You know.
people see it. They see they see Christ's mark on your life, and they can't help but to question, why you are the way you are. What made you this way. They can't help but to feel that way. And I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with people, and they're like, why are you like this? Not a lot of people are like you. Like, what are you? Are you Christian? You Muslim? What are you? And I'm Christian. Hey, Christian, Christian. Like, but it's like they they can't help but to question why you are the way you are. Why is it that you do not do the same things or talk the same way or present yourself in the same manner as we do? It's
Hmm.
just, I'm not tooting my own horn here, but when you have God in your life, it's, you can't not show it. You know what I
Right.
mean? It's just, it's oozing out of you, I'm not like, the best example of a Christian, like, people say a super Christian, if you will, or whatever. But I do my best to show that, I am separated here. I cannot talk the way that you talk. I cannot listen to the same music that you listen to. I cannot present myself in the same manner that you present yourself in. Because when it comes down to it, I'm representing something higher than that. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? I'm representing something, that's meaningful, that's truth. And in order for me to do that, I need to make sure that I am where I'm supposed to be. My baby girl is knocking on my door right now. Give me one moment.
No problem. Absolutely. Yeah, and this is what I want us to get from this conversation. Um, that we don't have to give into the voice that tells us that we have to be perfect, that we have the ability to be flawed, we have the ability to be challenged, and in spite of all that we may be dealing with, right? When we recognize that, or we show to others that Christ is the one that's directing us and that he is the source of our strength, it puts us in that position where we can have a greater impact, because now the voice of God is leading us, and not the voice that's telling us why, what are people going to think, or why should you do things a certain way. And so I want everyone here to get that listen, all that we're doing as Christian leaders, and it doesn't matter what industry you're in. You can be in ministry, you can be in business, you can be a nonprofit, you can be in school. No matter what industry that you're in, as a leader, as a Christian leader, you know, it's important that we display the character of Christ, and not a camouflage image of perfection.
Amen. It's true. It doesn't matter what anybody else's expectations are. What matters is God's expectations. What does He expect from you?
Right.
And He expects you to just put your faith in Him, walk closer with Him. Everybody else, again, could just fade away. As long as you know that you are doing what God wants you to do and you're working towards Him, you can't fail.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I hope that was impactful, guys. John, any last words that you want to share tonight?
Put God first in every way. Just put God first. I'm sorry. It's cliche, but man, it's like that's the only thing you need to worry about. Just in your marriage, in your school, in your life, in all ways, just put God first. It doesn't matter. You can never go wrong by doing that. And I really thank you for allowing me to be a part of this. I appreciate that. The fact that you actually thought about me when you were thinking of guests to come on the show. I really appreciate that.
No, absolutely. Like I said, the things that you shared tonight, again, genuine, impactful, intentional, and I think it's important, especially from the unique perspective of being a pastor's kid, and knowing that. dealing with the pressure of those expectations. And you said something that was so true, that you got to be mindful of how is this going to affect my father's brand, right?
Oh yeah.
And I think a lot of times we have that in our head, and we all may not be pastors' kids, but we all have dealt with that, right? How is what I do going to affect what I represent, right? What church I'm a part of, what business I'm a part of, what community I'm a part of. How is right? Because every time a lot of times we deal with that, where people think that if you behave a certain way, then it's a reflection of how everybody is that
Yeah.
you're connected to.
May I say one more thing though?
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
Everyone that's a part of this channel right now, you are expecting yourselves to be leaders as well. What I will say is, growing up as a pastor's son, I had to deal with those expectations. You being leaders in the church or in your business or anything like that, when you're doing anything for God, and you have children, pray for your kids and pray that they don't have to, you know, deal with those expectations, or at least fall to those expectations that you had to deal with when you were growing up as a child of God. Because for some reason it hurts one generation and it moves on to the next. I now had to deal with making sure that my children don't have to push themselves to deal with the expectations that people are going to be placing on them, because I'm a reverend now. I have to
Hmm.
now tell them what my mother told me, that what you have to focus on is your own personal relationship with God. Everyone else, don't worry about them. Worry about God, and as long as you do that, you're fine. You need to teach your kids that what comes first is God's view of you, no one else's. That's it.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, definitely. Um, you want we want our children to just be children and be able to
Mhm.
enjoy their childhood. As you said that, it made me think of athletes, right? Children of athletes have that pressure that you have to be just as good as your parent, right? Um,
LeBron James' son, he has to be the best. If he's not,
right,
then he is far from that tree. He fell too far from that tree.
right, right. Same thing with Michael Jordan's kids. Michael Jordan's kids had to deal with that
Yeah.
he's considered the greatest of all time, and so people are expecting that his children. And you hear some athletes talk. They say that like a lot of their children stay away from sports because of who their parents are. And you see that in the church too. A lot of church kids stay, or PKs stay away from the church because of that same expectation of who their
The
who their
voices.
parents are in the church. And again, it's like you said, yes, it's the voices that are in our heads that tell us these things, and it becomes a hindrance because it sets us back, right? A lot of times we don't procrastinate, we don't fail to do what we were supposed to do unless we give into those voices. It is usually those voices in our head that keep us in that place of procrastination. It keeps us in that place of feeling defeated. It keeps us in that place of wanting to give up and wanting to quit. And sometimes it keeps us in that place of not even wanting to try at all, right? God may be saying this is where you need to go, but because the voices are so loud, you decide to go this way. And then thank God by his grace that even though you go this way, he allows different things to happen to
Yeah.
somehow get you to this point,
Get you right back to the point. Yeah.
get
And
you
put you right
right to
back
this
on track.
point. But now you start to feel like, man, I've wasted so much time in doing this when I should have been doing that. And I think that comes with growth and comes with maturity. But ultimately, it boils down to recognizing that, listen, this is the voice I'm hearing. I'm identifying it as perfection. And so you know what? I don't need to be perfect. All I have to do is start, right? There's a saying that
Amen.
says sometimes you just have to jump off the cliff and build the wings on the way down. There's sometimes you have to just jump and start it, and then allow yourself to grow into it so that you can grow into becoming who you need to be. You have to have experiences, you have to have challenges, you have to have failures, you have to have successes, wins and losses. All of these things ultimately to help you to grow into becoming who you need to become.
Amen.
And I think once we give ourselves that grace and we give ourselves room for growth, then we can really grow into who God has called us to be. No one is
Exactly.
born um knowing exactly who they are, what they're supposed to do. We got to grow into that, because if we don't grow into that, we don't mature into it, then when we get to that point, we will not be able to handle it, because we have not gone through the process of becoming who we need to become. So, as I always say, thank you so much, John, for joining me. Thank you for your points and your insight. It's truly been helpful. I hope that this was impactful. I hope everyone on the live you were able to get something from it.
I
Listen, we
did.
got to silence that voice of perfection.
Hmm.
We got to silence that voice that tells us that we have to be perfect. Don't let it hinder you. Don't let it stop you. You will learn. You will grow into it. You will learn what you need to learn. The knowledge will come. The wisdom will come. The understanding will come. Um, you just have to do it so that you gain the experience, and forget about that voice that tells us that I have to be perfect. That Forget about the voices that say that I have. What are people going to think about me? Forget about all of that pressure of the expectations of others. And as John said, think about the expectations of God, and how can I meet God's requirements and God's expectations, because God gives us a whole lot more grace than people do. God
Amen.
gives us a whole lot more
He's a
room
lot more
than people
forgiving.
do. And he's a lot more forgiving, absolutely. A lot more forgiving than people are.
Yeah.
Because people will put you in a box and keep you
Yeah.
in a box.
Yeah.
But we serve a God who always moves outside of the box. He created the
Hmm.
box. And we have to sometimes take the step to create new boxes,
Exactly.
and so that we can be able to really be the leaders that God has called us to be. And so, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you joining us. For those of you that missed it earlier, we're going to be having Men with a Vision workshop on Tuesday, December 28th at 8 p.m. It's $22 investment launching into 2022. It's going to be focused on breaking through limitations, navigating our vision, and creating a plan of success. Many of us, we have ideas. Many of us, we have goals and we have dreams, but how do we put those dreams into action, right? How do we create a plan? How do we formulate it so that we can be able to be effective? 2022 is going to be a year where we navigate our purpose and navigate our goals and navigate our assignments. And so, if you know a young man, an old man, anybody with a dream, anyone with an idea, it could be a business idea, it could be a ministry idea, it can be a nonprofit idea, it can just be an idea to do something. Whatever it is, you could want to be someone who be an artist, right? Whatever your dream is, whatever your vision is, whatever your goal is, join this workshop. We're going to be diving into it, start to create strategic plans that are going to help us get started. The challenge a lot of times is, how do I get started? And so this is going to be a workshop geared towards men. I feel a really real passion and a heart for to help men to build their vision, especially young men in the community. We have that challenge of not having enough support, not having enough people believing in us, not having anyone to really tell us that, listen, you can accomplish this, right? Outside of entertainment, outside of sports, right? A lot of times we get locked into that trap that, oh, you can only be successful if you're a rapper or
Hmm.
if you're an athlete. But
Hmm.
there are other things that God has given us to do, other dreams and ideas that God has given us, and we have the capability of doing it. And so if you know anybody who is interested, tell them, give them the link, tell them to sign up. It's going to be something that's been impactful. It's going to be something that's going to be helpful. And so that's pretty much it. I thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. I hope that you guys have a blessed week. I hope that God will help you to build your vision, that God will help you to deal with the challenges of the voices, and utilize these tips to help yourself. Utilize these things, recognize and identify those voices, silence them, and lean into the voice of God. And so I hope you all have a blessed week. Thank you so much for tuning in. I love and appreciate you all, and the fact that you took your time to join us tonight. I look forward to continuing the conversation. So God bless, and I'll see you all next week. Take care.